Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll try to get through this painlessly. We're going to talk to you about fuel breaks. And, here we go. So a little bit about myself. My name is Wesley Steed. I am the Wildfire Risk Management Coordinator with Forest Management Division of Environment and Climate Change. And I've been with ECC for about the last 15 years. Before that, years ago, I was a structural firefighter. And when I saw an opportunity to get back into working with ECC as the Fire Smart Coordinator, I got involved with that. And currently, as the Community Risk Management Coordinator, a Wildfire Risk Management Coordinator, I do a lot of work with communities, community protection, community wildfire protection plans, interface response plans. And what we're going to talk about today is fuel breaks. So getting the most, oh, what happened there? Do I got to point it up there? No. Oh, I hit the wrong button. Okay, wrong button. There it is. All right. So we're going to talk a little bit about getting the most out of the fuel breaks. I'll talk to you briefly about the history of the fuel breaks, and then we have some other great associates here, Carla and Andrew, and they're going to talk in a little more detail about fuel breaks and how we can use them to our better benefit and what we can do with them. So a couple things that you need to know. Now, we've heard this story about this earlier today, or earlier yesterday, Toledo, June 1995. This is the hamlet of Toledo, and in June 1995, a coal seam fire called VQ, was named VQ009, and under the right conditions, depending whether you're the fire or looking at the fire coming at you, the fire took off. Extreme wildfire behavior threatening the community. The community of Toledo was evacuated. The fire then continued to spread. So it jumped the Bear River, and then it went up over Bear Rock, and the extreme wildfire behavior was starting to roll this fire towards Norman Wells. Norman Wells is the government center in the Sawtooth region at the time. A lot of people there, a lot of industry. Not only that, just that Toledo was a big concern, there was also now Norman Wells. And a number of people had been evacuated there already. So what happened in the course of this fire, Norman Wells was evacuated. 2 fuel breaks were established at that time in the southeast of Norman Wells. You can see them here, they're still there. I've colored them up a little bit to make them a little brighter. They were established on the southeast side of Norman Wells as a last line of defense. And they were set up to be a place where an ignition operation would be done from. Now, fortunately, they ended up doing the ignition from a stream a little further to the south called Vermilion Creek, and it was successful. It stopped the VQ9's progress. So at that point, we talk about the history of fuel breaks. These are the first time they were introduced into the Northwest Territories. And the GNWT at that time decided it was necessary to start putting fuel breaks all over the Northwest Territories. So they started putting them around communities. And this is Norman Wells in 2003. So in 2003, there was another fire. I think, which one's the pointer? This one here? Center one's the pointer. All right. So way back here, you'll see a fire. And this right here is a fuel break that was put in, established, as an ignition line. The ignition line and the ignition of the fuel was burnt from the edge of the community to take out the fuel in between the 2 fires, creating a bigger fuel break. So ignition folks are incredible at this stuff. They know when to light them. They know the conditions they need to be in. There's a lot of work that goes into setting it up. But the great thing about this, again, the fire behavior, once they took the fuel out, took care of the issue of the fire being on the north end of Norman Wells. So that was 2003. So we see fuel breaks as a tool. What am I doing here now? Oh, button, okay. So fuel breaks, we continue to promote fuel breaks in and around the north. You'll see a couple of communities here, Sigachik's fuel break, there's Fort Providence fuel breaks. And we see people, or we see communities using them, or we establish them as a line of defense, a tool for us to use to protect the community. And we continue to promote them. Fire Smart and fire smarting around your home is really a fuel break. The home ignition zone around your house is putting a fuel break around your house. And that is one of the greatest things we can do, and that's the importance of Fire Smart. And you'll hear more about Fire Smart. You'll hear us talk about it all the time, but it is something we need to do. Fuel breaks are one tool in the toolbox that can help mitigate the risk to our communities. Implementing these from our CWPPs, adopting the 7 disciplines of Fire Smart will reduce the risk to our communities. I always talk to people about remove the fuel, reduce the fuel. So remove the fuel is a fuel break. Reduce the fuel is thin, prune, and clean up around the trees. Keep the fuel down and reduce the fuel. And then the other one is the replace the fuel, where we talk about species conversion, and you're going to hear a bit about that today too. So I'm now going to turn this over to Carla. Carla's with the University of Wilfrid Laurier University. Carla is a researcher, and she's been doing a lot of work on fuel breaks. And I'm going to turn this over to her because she's got a lot to say. And it's great stuff, folks. Listen up.
Okay, let me figure out the buttons here. Oh. There we go. It's just a bit slow. Okay, and I'm short. Hi, everyone. Like Wes said, I'm Carla Johnston, and I'm a researcher at Wilfrid Laurier University. And just a little about myself. Sorry, I got to grab my notes. I am from Waterloo, Ontario, but I have been coming up to the Northwest Territories since 2016 on various different research projects. And since 2019, I've been working with Kagi2 First Nation and Sambake First Nation on a number of different projects, one of which is supporting KTFN with their fuel break, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. I am also part of a working group of people who have experience with fuel breaks in the boreal forest across Alaska, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories. On the group, we have Indigenous government representatives, fire managers and firefighters, land and conservation managers from various different governments, foresters that actually create the fuel breaks, researchers from many different disciplines, and NGO reps as well. And we have been focusing on this challenge. So fuel breaks are a necessary piece of infrastructure for your community to prepare for and to decrease the risk of wildfires. But at the same time, fuel breaks are expensive, they require regular maintenance, and they can cause issues such as permafrost and habitat loss. And also, not everybody is super excited about having this in their backyard. And so as a group, we have been thinking about how to reimagine fuel breaks so that they can both protect communities from fires and provide other benefits through secondary uses of the fuel break. And the other thing that we're focusing on is how can we support communities to plan for and implement those secondary uses of the fuel break. So how could we use the fuel break for everything from agriculture to ski trails to a number of different things. And so as a group, we have come up with a number of different ideas of what you could do in your fuel break, and we've broken them down into 4 categories that you see here on the screen. And so the first here is infrastructure and recreation. And this, the whole idea of this category is that you're embedding fire protection into the development planning for both infrastructure and recreation for your community. So the picture up at this top here is actually a community in Alaska that designed their airport to go between the community and the forest, that WUI thing that we've been hearing so much about over the past couple of days, so that the airport can also be used as a fuel break. And then of course, fuel breaks can also be used for a number of different recreational activities. And this often kind of happens naturally as people use them as trails, sports fields, and that sort of thing. The next category here is food and natural materials. So clearing the land for a fuel break can also serve as preparing the land for food production, such as agriculture. And if you are interested in that, there's actually a really great resource at the back of the room that the NWT Agri-Food Association put together. And you can see Mickey's got that over there. But also when you're creating a fuel break, the opening of the canopy can actually support local berries to grow, or you can plant them. And you can plant things like medicines or other gathered plants in those open areas. And then the other part here is that benefits can also come from the clearing of the fuel break, such as using the trees that are coming out as firewood. And so the next type here is the forest type conversion, and we've kind of been hinting at that a bunch over the past couple of days. And so the idea here is that you're either planting or thinning for native deciduous trees, either aspen, birch, or others, at low densities to act as a natural fuel break. And that's because deciduous trees are much less flammable than spruce or pines because they hold much more moisture in both their trunks and in their leaves. And they don't have the branches, like on a conifer, branches start right at the ground and then they move all the way up to the top. And conifer and deciduous trees don't have that. And so that often can slow or reduce the spread of a fire. There's also other conversions to things like wetlands or shrublands that you can consider. And I've got this note here at the bottom that these can fail in extreme conditions, and we heard about that from Jen earlier. These are still trees, they can burn, but it's important to remember that fuel breaks don't stop fires. They can be used to slow fires, and they can be used as a way to action during a firefighting situation. And then the last category here is things where the fuel break can be used for training new firefighters, experimenting with new techniques and equipment. They can be demonstration sites of the different types of fuel breaks, or they can be used for research purposes. And for some reason, that's not showing up. Oh, I think I know why. It's gonna. I think they're all going to come individually. But the point of this slide here is that when you're thinking about these secondary uses for your fuel break, there are both benefits, and there can be many benefits that come from these, as well as different challenges as well. And I've kind of broken some of the benefits and challenges based on the different categories of fuel breaks. But the point here is to remember that there are both challenges and benefits, and we need to be planning for those and considering them when choosing which benefits and which secondary uses to go with for your community. And so as a working group, we have also created some planning tools, which you actually see on your tables today. So we've created a step-by-step planning guide about how to think through that process and plan that process of having additional benefits in your fuel break. And then also a deck of scenario cards. So these are a bunch of different ideas of what you could do in your fuel break. And they're really to kind of get the juices flowing. They're not all of the ideas. There are many things that you could do, but it's a way to kind of start thinking about what you could possibly do. And they include things like why you would choose this scenario, as well as places that have actually done this before. So they have examples of communities that have actually done this. And we would love to hear your feedback on these tools to help improve them, come up with new ideas. If you have ideas, please come and see me, and I'd love to hear about them. And just to finish up here, I want to give a few examples of communities that have actually done this. So the first here is the Teslin Tlingit Council in the Yukon. So they have paid community members to cut the trees to create the fuel break. The trees that have been removed are being used for firewood. They have designed their fuel break in a way that protects culturally modified trees that are important to the community. In some areas of the fuel break, they're doing the forest type conversion to birch because it is a culturally important species for the community and have many different uses. And they've set up a program where community members go out into other parts of the bush and collect birch seeds to create seedlings to plant in the fuel break. And then in other parts of the fuel break, they are planting berries. They're planting raspberry berries, and that's actually what you see here in the picture. And they have partnered with researchers for both the forest type conversion and the berry planting to study how they grow in different conditions. And this research has provided funding to help establish these different benefits. Next is Whitehorse, and this shows a picture of the very large fuel breaks that are going to be going around the city of Whitehorse. And you can see things like 193 hectares for the largest section there. And so in these, this is actually a picture of one of those fuel breaks. This is an aerial shot of the Mary Lake fuel break looking north towards the community. And so you can see here that this is both a mix, it's a mix of different types of treatments for the fuel break. So you've got things here, oops, wrong way. So you've got thinned areas here, and then you've got completely removed areas here, and you also have prescribed burn areas. And so they have been using prescribed burns in many of their fuel breaks. This helps to reduce surface fuels, as well as provide data on how fire behavior reacts in certain different types of fuel treatments. But the big kind of thing that's happening outside of Whitehorse is that they're doing the forest type conversion. And they're doing that in these really large fuel breaks. And they've already planted 168,000 aspen seedlings into their fuel breaks. And with the help of the 2 Billion Tree Program, which you're going to hear about from Andrew momentarily, they're planning to do between 500,000 and 2 million aspen seedlings in their fuel breaks. And then last but not least, Kagi2 First Nation, the community that I have been helping to support. And so they have partnered with my research group to explore how local and traditional knowledge can guide the creation of benefits in their fuel break. And this partnership has provided funding, training for community members, and capacity to make these benefits a reality. And we held a workshop in the community here, where we got to talk with community members about what they're interested in doing in the fuel break. And the most common idea and what was wanted was to plant berries in their fuel break. But the community members didn't want berry species that you could buy from the store. They wanted their own local berries. And so we have been transplanting berries from other parts of the bush into the fuel break. And we have plans this summer to do much more of this planting as well. We've provided irrigation using lake water for these berries. The fuel break allows for another access point to the lake, as well as connects to important trails. And there's plans for other types of agriculture like potatoes and vegetables, and there's even an idea of a golf course. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Andrew.
So I get to be the last speaker of the day. Is everyone awake? You did a good job. Yeah, so I'm known as the tree guy for the 2 Billion Trees program for Northwest Territories. And for those of you that don't know, the 2 Billion Trees program came out of the, how do I do this? Just, oh, the arrow? There we go. Okay, so the 2 Billion Trees program came out of Ottawa, and it's a commitment to plant 2 billion trees across Canada by 2031. And Northwest Territories is a participant in that program. So I came up here 2 years ago to say, I think there's an opportunity here. Let's see what it is. And so I spent the first 16 months just walking the land, because I don't know if you guys noticed, but the forest seems to come back here pretty well, or unless it's just me. No, I think it comes back pretty well. So it was quite a bit of work. So I'm going to talk to you about that for just a couple of minutes, and then we're going to go into an activity. And I thought as a good segue, I might tell you about sticks. See, when I was a kid, I hated doing chores. And I would entertain myself because I knew if I came home, I was going to get put to work. And we didn't have much money, so there was no real toys. And I would go out to the bush and I would play with sticks and entertain myself. Grade 8 came and it was time to do a science project. And I had watched, I think it was Ben-Hur or something like that. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to make a catapult. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a catapult. How am I going to do that? And so I went out into the garage and I found some rope and some sisal twine, which is like just kind of string, and a couple of pulleys. And I went in the kitchen and dug through the garbage and found an old empty salmon can. And then I went to the woods and I cut down some poles. And I took my string, being a Boy Scout, and I lashed together a catapult. And I used my Boy Scout knots and I tied it. And then I took it to school. Well, there was a lot of laughter until it worked, because I loaded that. I had the salmon can and I put a water balloon on there. And then I had a couple of the naysayers in the class launch it. It was a make do with what you've got solution. That's what I grew up with. And I think that's something that is very natural here in Northwest Territories and something I greatly appreciate. And so when I look at the 2 Billion Trees program, it needs to work for Northwest Territories. Yes, it needs to work for Ottawa, but it needs to work for Northwest Territories. And so that was the attitude that I took on what do you do with 2 billion trees. So like I said, I walked the land and I came up with 3 places that it might be possible to provide benefit to Northwest Territories. The number one most important opportunity is here. So this program, first and foremost, I think, is to serve you. And this is a need that has been identified by the citizens. And we can take this program and we can apply it to help you. The first thing I did is I contacted Ottawa and I said, these plant species don't work. Territorial citizens need something more. They need flexibility. And so, speaking with Ottawa, they changed the program. And so now we have opportunity. Northwest Territories is going to put in about 8 million seedlings between now and 2031. That's a lot of seedlings. But that's not just spruce, pine, and fir. That includes, after speaking with my friends at Fort Resolution, I think we got some Saskatoons coming this year. After spending some time around Fort Providence, which, by the way, they did a great job for me. I got some green alder coming, and we have white birch coming, and we have a whole lot of stuff coming. After community protection, there's scorched earth. Scorched earth is an opportunity to put something back other than a tree. There may be some opportunities for trees, but there's opportunities that we can apply native plants to help fix the soil, which is why we have a plant like green alder, because green alder will take that nitrogen from the atmosphere and fix it and put it in the ground and make it healthier for more plants to grow. And then if we're not doing that, then we might have some meadows and islands. I heard some discussion about wood buffalo today. Meadows and islands, we have these island ecosystems. And when I looked at that, I said, there's the possibility that the scorched earth may have on that island eliminated some of the plant species that would have been there because that was a really hard fire. So there's opportunities there. And then the last place is I've spoken with the contaminated sites people to see if there is an opportunity to use native plants as a part of reclamation on the cleanup and the restoration of their industrial sites. So those are the 4 key areas that we're looking at. So why plant? How are we doing for time? Really quick. Okay. Why plant? We're going to slow the fire. We're not stopping the fire. We're going to slow it. We're going to stabilize the soil. The soil is your asset. We want to keep the soil. We're also going to use our plants to suppress some of those other species that like to help fire move. More woodies, less grasses. That's what I found. We want to prevent noxious weeds. If you don't put something there, something else will grow on its own. I don't like thistle. We might want small mammal habitat. We might be thinking about songbirds. Maybe there's public utility, recreation, berries, the gardening. Opportunities. Make do with what you have. Okay, so this past year, I'm going to back up here. How do we do that? There we go. This past year, we had a crop of tamarack. Tamarack comes about once every 5 to 7 years. And so had Fort Providence, Fort Resolution, and Hay River help me out. By the way, guys, we got about 650,000 seeds out of that viable. And Tamarack is a plant that, let me put it this way. If I'm a fire and I go for jack pine, I'm doing this. And then I get tamarack. You got time to figure out which way to point. What? Let's see a shot. Okay, we collected a lot of stuff. That's key. About 5 million seeds worth of material, but that's just a start, okay? And to show you that it does work, this is a couple weeks ago. So this is a tamarack crop, so that the seeds that you guys collected, they're happening. And there'll be about 350,000 plants ready either for September or for the spring. So when you're doing your planning, you can be thinking about the opportunity that is coming. Now, you're going to say, well, we might need something that's not on that list. Well, that's a great thing for us to know, because we can plan for that. So, sustainable accomplishments. In terms of 2 billion trees, you need to plan ahead. We need to plan ahead. It's worth the time. 95% planning, 5% implementation. Because then when you get a hiccup, you can adjust. You need to be patient and dedicated. Sometimes these crops, they don't come every year. And you need to meet deadlines. Mark this down, September 30th. If there's one thing I want you to know, September 30th, Forest Resources needs to know what you need for seeds to grow, pardon me, by September 30th every year. Otherwise, you're waiting at least another year. Okay? So that's key. And if you have a question, call. If we don't know, we'll say we don't know, and then we will find an answer for you. That's 2 billion trees. Thank you.
Thank you.